minutes after 8 o'clock. Assalamu alaikum to you, dearest Ayesha. Kajee, lovely to be talking with you after a very long while. And once again, obviously, whenever we have you on air, is to discuss issues or instability or very serious issues in Africa and beyond, very especially the Middle East as well. This time around, we're looking at the border between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo near the besieged city of Goma, which was closed on Monday. This, according to European consulate sources and witnesses, going on to say that hours after M23 rebels and Rwandan troops entered the eastern Congolese regional capital. However, Rwanda has denied involvement despite credible reports from the United Nations that Rwanda is in fact backing the M23 rebels. Aisha Kajee, Assalamu alaikum, welcome. And how much more light can you shed on this situation, which I think is very quickly getting way out of control?
Indeed, Julie, it has escalated over the past few days. Just 3 days ago, the rebels were in the town of Sake, which is a mere 27 kilometers from the regional capital, the capital of North Kivu, which is Goma, as you said. Now, if anybody here has looked at a map of Congo, of the DRC and Rwanda, you will see that Goma sits very much on the Congolese side of the Rwandese-Congo border. So it's essentially right on the border of Rwanda and Congo. It is also far closer to the Rwandan capital of Kigali than it is to the capital of DRC, Kinshasa. It is also an area that has long been a region of instability because of the precious metals that are mined in the area, among them gold, tantalum, coltan, and manganese. And, these metals have long made this area a contested region, not only between Rwanda and the DRC, but also within the DRC. Unfortunately, many news media, while they will blame this conflict on ethnic tensions between the Tutsi and Hutu populations in the region, will not say that some of those tensions have indeed been escalated by multinational corporations from various parts of the globe, including some that are based in South Africa or have South African subsidiaries. So
Aisha,
that is something to bear in mind, Julie, that there is a strong economic factor here, as well as the geopolitical and ethnic tensions.
All right. So analysts like yourself have warned that the latest escalation of hostilities could further, and you've already indicated that it has already destabilized the region and the situation could very quickly get out of hand. We also know that this is home to one of the world's largest humanitarian crises or crises, with more than 6 million people displaced. And in my opening, I had indicated that we can see even more displacements and more legal and illegal immigration happening all around Africa and beyond our borders. That being said, Ayesha, we do understand that this area is rich in mineral resources, which the Western world has got its eyes on. When the situation is so tense and there's this ongoing fighting in the region, is the mining still ongoing? Because we've also heard that some military personnel, Congolese and also those UN peacekeeping forces, following an ultimatum by M23, have handed in their weapons, and also white mercenaries from Romania and Bulgaria who fought for the army have managed now to leave the country really at the last minute. So quite a few issues I've raised there. I'll hand over to you to respond, please.
Well, on the issue of displacements, Congo has one of the world's largest populations of internally displaced people. So you're talking about, of the 6 million displaced people that you mentioned, internally displaced people, about 4.6 million within Congo itself. And
Hmm.
some of those people, as we have seen among the residents of Gaza, some of those people, particularly in North Kivu, have been displaced multiple times. One, two, three, four. On Friday morning, I spoke to a source in Congo who said he's been talking to people who've been displaced 6 times over the last 5 years alone. So you
Hmm.
can imagine having to leave your home once, then twice, then 3 times, up to 6 times. Imagine that. Leaving everything you possess behind, running for your life, losing family members, etc. So the proportions of displaced people are huge, and the humanitarian implications of that are huge as well. The hospital in Goma is currently overwhelmed. In the last week alone, the number of internally displaced people this year was sitting at 200,000 last week, sorry. And by Saturday this week, it was 400,000. So just in the month of January alone, Julie, and we haven't even come to the end of that month, 400,000 people have been displaced. You can imagine the chaos that causes internally and in the region. That's one issue. The second issue is the issue of the peacekeepers. The MONUC force in Congo, that is the UN force in Congo, again, is one of the largest anywhere in the world. And in this recent conflict, in the last few weeks, less than 2 months, 19 peacekeepers have been killed. 9 of those are South Africans, we know, that were killed on this latest attack or, siege on Goma by the M23. 9 of them, as I say, are South Africans, that is known. 3 are Malawians, 1 is Uruguayan. Of the other 6, there is no clarity as to the nationality of the other 6. But 19 peacekeepers, UN peacekeepers, have been killed. Yes, it is true that there are reports that UN peacekeepers and others in the region have handed in their weaponry to the M23 in an effort to save their own lives as well as prevent further bloodshed. The government of DRC has said that this amounts to a declaration of war on the DRC by the Rwandan government. Now, the Rwandan government has long, as you mentioned, has long been accused of supporting the M23 rebels, a claim that it has often disputed in the past. But it has actually agreed that it does have some soldiers on the ground in the North Kivu region near Goma. And there are estimates from the UN and from human rights groups that at least 4,000 Rwandan military officers or Rwandan military personnel, at least 4,000 do operate in that area. They have been seen hand in hand with the M23 rebels. It has also been very clear from photo and video footage that the M23 has possession of armaments, of military hardware, if you will, including tanks as well as guns, etc., that can have originated nowhere else but Rwanda. And in the latest UN special meeting that was called, the emergency council meeting that was called, Rwanda did not dispute that there were Rwandese forces on the ground or that it had actually provided M23 with support, but it did actually note with some dissatisfaction that the international community appears to be blaming M23 and Rwanda for this latest escalation rather than focusing on the Congolese army itself. And of course, within the Congolese army, now integrated into the Congolese army, the former FDLR militia, which in 1994 was accused of being closely linked to the massacre of Tutsis, the genocide in Rwanda itself, and which then spread across the border. And Rwanda has basically said that it is helping to protect Tutsi and moderate Hutu civilians in the region. However, now that the border is closed, Julie, the implications of this now go beyond a regional conflict or a conflict within a civil war within Congo. It has now spread to the region. As the Congolese government has said, for DRC, this is tantamount to a declaration of war. It has cut diplomatic ties with Rwanda. The further implications of this are, of course, that it becomes truly a regional war with countries such as Uganda, possibly Burundi, and others stepping in. Given that some of the peacekeeping, white berets of the UN have ties with other African countries, including, as I mentioned, South Africa and Malawi, it is not impossible that some of those countries would now become embroiled in this conflict as well, at least from a diplomatic stance. So what we are seeing now is very, very fragile at the moment and a very likely escalation into a regional war, which could then set the stage for, at least at the diplomatic level, a conflict that spreads throughout the continent and even beyond.
Okay, we're going for an ad break. When we come back, I want to look at the issue regarding food prices, fears of revenge killing, the chaos in Goma, and we haven't still answered the question regarding the mining of all of those minerals. Has that come to a standstill? But all of that right after the ad break, please.
Okay.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
You know, it's a wonder how kids get anything done these days. With all the distractions, when do they even get time to study? As a mother, all I can really do is make sure they have all they need to perform at their best. That's why I choose to include Sunfoil, triple refined pure sunflower oil with every meal I make. Naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether I'm cooking, frying or baking, I know every dish will be a wholesome one. Sunfoil, now we're cooking.
They say breakfast is the most important meal of the day, yet many children go to school hungry because of poverty. Penny Appeal South Africa's Breakfast Club aims to get a warm, hearty meal to underprivileged children so they can spend their day prospering in their schoolwork. Help feed a needy learner for only 5 Rand a day, or 150 Rand a month. Or visit our website www.pennyappeal.org.za or call 031 1100 573 to find out how you can donate. Penny Appeal South Africa. Small change, big difference.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Abu Huraira narrated that he heard the Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, say, "In black seed there is a healing for every disease except death." This Ramadan, experience the health benefits of this ancient blessed seed by using the Tib Black Seed range. Black seed assists the body to boost immunity, regulate blood sugar levels, reduce inflammation, and act as a potent antioxidant. Experience a holistic approach to health by introducing the Tib Black Seed range into your Ramadan routine. Available in capsules, pure cold-pressed oil, and a vapor rub. Trust Tib Health Sciences for quality black seed products. For more information, visit blackseed.co.za. Available at leading pharmacies.
Valley's Motor Spares. We supply motor spares and accessories for all makes and models of motor cars, LDVs, bakkies, trucks, and earth-moving equipment. We deliver on time, every time. Please contact us via WhatsApp on 014-592-0925 or call 014-592-0925 or visit 28 Zenderling Street, Rustenburg. Remember the name, Valley's Motor Spares.
Connect and stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
It is 8:22 a.m. News and views on Salam Media. We have a political analyst and a human rights activist. She's a writer as well, my dear friend Ayesha Kajee, talking to us this morning about, obviously, the border that has been closed, the Congo-Rwanda border, and this amid M23 rebel siege. And she has outlined just how dire that situation is. Let's look at the issue around, I guess, fears of revenge killings, the chaos that is currently playing out in Goma currently, food prices and food scarcity that this issue has resulted in. And do we in fact see any end to, any end in sight to all of this suffering? Who and how, who should be intervening here to create some sense of order? And last but not least, we also understand that Goma is in darkness because the fighting has destroyed the main power lines. Ayesha Kajee, can you please come in again on those issues?
Sure. Julie, it's ironic that this is one of the most resource-rich regions of the world, let alone of Africa. And Africa is already, as we know, resource-rich. And yet it is home to, with the exception of the foreigners operating in that area, whether they are military, operations or economic operations, the local population in North Kivu, and indeed even in South Kivu, is one of the poorest in the world.
Sure.
Now, this conflict, which has escalated over the last few months, has seen food prices not double, not treble, but quadruple by December last year from the beginning of the year. It is already a region in which food prices are high because there is little agrarian activity in the area, given that much of the area is given over to mining in terms of economic activity. There was a lot of subsistence farming in the area, but as people become displaced, as I mentioned earlier, more than once, twice, three times, they then have to look for food sources outside of what they themselves can produce. This has meant that the prices of commercial food products, including staple foods, have escalated exponentially. People are now reporting, and this is actually before this last 2 weeks, people were reporting that they were paying as much as 20 times more for basic foodstuffs than they had done earlier at the same point last year. So within a year, they're paying a 20 times increase, which, as you know, for very, very poor families means a severe lack and therefore severe food insecurity, the risk of malnutrition, starvation, etc. There are also reports from hospitals in the region and medical personnel, including MSF, Médecins Sans Frontières, that the patients they are seeing in clinics and in hospitals are on the brink of starvation, severely malnourished, etc. So there is a huge food security issue in the region, which has been exacerbated by the last few weeks fighting, and indeed the fighting over the last several months. So that's one issue. The other issue that you asked about was whether mining operations in the region continue. That is difficult to assess, but several of the mining news outlets, mining magazines, and other media outlets report that the large miners in the region, such as Rome Resources and Loncore, have reported that they are unaffected by the conflict in Goma, that their mining still continues. This is largely because private mining operations in the region are very heavily secured. They have their own little private militias, etc.
Right.
And so they are able to continue almost unaffected. However, mining shares of companies that have large investments in the region, such as Canada's Alphamin, the share prices have dropped. And that is an indication that there is anxiety within investors, among investors, about whether the mining activities in the region will actually be halted by this conflict or not. Beyond that, it is difficult to say what will happen over the next few weeks. We do, of course, know that, again, this is a region that has long been home to illegal mining activities. And while your listeners might be thinking, well, what does that have to do with me, Julie?
Right.
Actually, it has a lot to do with every one of us, because the essential minerals that power everyday appliances, including the technology that we're currently speaking on, my cell phone, your computers, etc., depend on the minerals from this region. And just as,
I think it's cobalt, isn't it? Cobalt, one of the
cobalt,
sought after.
coltan, tantalus,
Right.
coltan and tantalus and cobalt are, the DRC is one of the world's biggest suppliers of all three of those, let alone,
Right.
as I said earlier, other minerals such as gold and tin, manganese, etc. But coltan, cobalt, and tantalus are literally present in much of the sophisticated communications technology that we all utilize every day. So our hands are also in an abstruse way bloodied by these conflicts. And we need to keep that in mind. We need to actually, as civil society around the world, push for an end to illegal mining activities, for better, prices, better wages, better living conditions, etc., for the miners in these regions, in much the same way as, there was a push decades ago to actually stop blood diamond mining and put a stop to that and make the world more aware of that. In the same way, we need to actually do this in DRC.
You just preempted my next comment, and that was the issue around blood diamonds. But that is still ongoing as well. It might be being done very surreptitiously, but it is ongoing. And then also what comes to mind right now, Ayesha, is the situation in Marikana. Marikana should never have happened, and it happened because of the same situation. The rich get richer and the poor continue being exploited.
Absolutely. And this is something, really, we really need to look at a global, human rights protection for mining activities around the world, and to actually elevate the issue in the public consciousness, that it becomes, as I said, in much the same way as, there was a fixation on blood diamonds, and many people today are careful to not buy diamonds from companies that have been implicated in conflict, as indeed many people today do not buy coffee that is not fair trade coffee. We need to actually get to a situation in the mining sector where people will say, well, I won't buy a cell phone from this company or a computer from this company because it is known that their cobalt or their coltan comes from activities in whatever region, possibly the Congo, that does not ethically trade, that is embroiled in conflict, that does not pay fair wages to the miners and the people who bring those minerals out of those mines at back-breaking effort with very, very little return. I've been in both South and North Kivu, Julie, not recently, but some years ago, more than a decade ago. And even then, what was happening there was quite appalling.
Well, Ayesha, what comes to mind once again is the South African situation with the Zamazamas. And you ask yourself, why do we have a situation like that playing out here? Again, it's about the exploitation of the poorest of the poor. And it's actually quite sick. And as you're speaking, I was just feeling more and more sick regarding this matter. To wrap up, then, Ayesha, let's just let me see. I have a comment here. But why? All right. I've just been given an indication that we need to wrap up. So, one more thing I do need to ask you. I spoke to a political analyst last week or the week before, and I spoke about the situation in South Africa, the issue regarding corrupt politicians. And the analyst said to me, just look to Rwanda and look at the success story that Rwanda, how it's turned its situation around in the country. But here we're talking about Rwanda getting involved here with Congo, on the border, having troops on the border. Rwanda could argue that they're just protecting their territory. So, what exactly is the situation here in closing, Ayesha?
In closing, I think politics anywhere in the world has a tendency to be corrupt. While many people look to the post-1994 genocide in Rwanda as a success story, it depends on what level you're looking at that, Julie. Yes, one can walk safely in Kigali. Yes, it is a city where people come together once a week. Indeed, it's a country where people come together once a week to do some form of community service. It's a great idea, but it is something that is imposed by the government. And this is a government that is a very authoritarian government. It is a system in which there isn't actual real multi-party democracy. People don't talk about this in Rwanda. Yes, the RPF government, the Kagame government, has done a lot to encourage stability in the country, to encourage economic activity in the country. But it has come at the cost of freedom of expression in the country. It has come at the cost of true and open political fairness in the country. So, there are those issues. On the other hand, it's been it's become an economic powerhouse in Africa, which is astounding in a period of 35 odd years, So there is something to be said, if you will, for so-called benevolent authoritarian governments. But that benevolence extends only so far. It's certainly not extending to the people of living on the other side of the border with Rwanda of Congo, the people of North Kivu. Yet, there are strong indications that Rwanda has backed the M23 rebels and does indeed, as I've said before, have its own military personnel in that area. So the question is then, can one look to Rwanda as a success story internally, but a failure externally? And even that, is it fair? Rwanda has become a success even externally in the economic field. It exports flowers and fruits to the European Union, for example. So it's difficult to point a finger at Rwanda and say it's an overall success story. It's a success story in certain respects, and at the cost of suppressing freedom of expression and freedom of political participation within its own population, and certainly on its borders. Now, if you call that a success story in a political sense, I would call that a failure. In the economic sense, perhaps a success.
Okay, that's where we leave it. Thank you indeed for your absolutely deep insights on all matters political. I can't wait to get talking to you again. Go well, keep us in your du'as, and salamu alaikum to you.
Shukran jazilan wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
That was Ayesha Kajee, political analyst, human rights activist, and a writer in her own right as well. Moving along now, it is 8:36 a.m. We're going for an ad break, and when we get back, we're going to be talking with Hanif Hendricks of the Al Jama Party. He obviously is the leader there, and we're going to get his views on the signing of the expropriation bill into law by President Ramaphosa.